Hello, my name is Mike. This, well, it's not a bike. This is my 1993 Buick Century station wagon, which I purchased very cheap because, well, tranny's no good. If you guys have been following my channel, you saw in the previous episodes I did just about everything but fix the transmission in this car. I ran all over the state of Arizona. I found little small parts and pieces I needed for the steering column and for the lights in the back and all kinds of stuff. Not only that, but the weather hasn't been very good and we had some holidays come along, so that's why the transmission hasn't been addressed. I also needed the manual to get specifications. I needed some special tools and equipment. And well, now I have a transmission jack. I have my book. I've got a special tool for transmission repair. I've fabricated a drain for the overhead hoist, and I've even got a big catch pan so that the transmission fluid will not permeate all surfaces surrounding me and, hopefully go down in the barrel there. Which means I'm out of excuses. So I didn't want to leave you guys up in the air about the transmission in this car. So in this episode, we're actually going to tear into that transmission and try to repair it. Hopefully it will be an uplifting episode. I didn't want to let you guys down. Anyway, all really bad humor aside, stick around.
Somewhere in a dusty, dirty back alley in western Arizona, not far from historic Route 66, is an old fart trying to cram a square peg into a round hole. He'll work on anything, just as long as it's got at least 2 cool wheels.
First thing we're going to do is we're going to drain the transmission fluid out of this tranny. For whatever reason, engineers don't generally put drain plugs in the transmission pans of automatic transmissions. Not real sure why that is. I suspect it's because they want to make sure that you take the whole thing down so you can, inspect inside. And that makes sense because if you look inside, a lot of times you're going to have clues as to what the cause of the problem is. I might find a lot of clutch material indicating I have a clutch that's slipping, or I might find chunks of metal indicating a hard part that has failed. So the other thing about when you pull the transmission pan down is you have access to the transmission filter that way. So that's probably why there's no drain plug. They want you to change the filter too. Anyway, we're going to start by draining the fluid out of that transmission. Unlike brake fluid or brake cleaner spray or gasoline, transmission fluid's fairly benign, so you want to get as much of it onto your skin as possible, into your facial orifices, so you get the full effect, like you would with one of the more caustic types of fluids. Anyway, we'll drain the fluid out of it, we'll take a look in the pan, and we'll get an idea of what we might be up against when we go into the transmission from the end. transmission that won't go. This is very surprising. It's pretty clean. There's really not much clutch material on the bottom. No metal chunks. I mean, on the magnet, you got some spooge, but that's very normal for 100 plus thousand mile transmission. So this is, I don't know if this is good news or bad news. Either way, we're going to have to go in deeper. All right, I put the pan back up so it'll continue to catch a little bit of fluid, but the bulk of the fluid is out of it. Next thing we're going to do is, I'm going to go up top. There's a couple things I need to disconnect up there. We have to disconnect the steering shaft, the steering column from the rack, because this entire cradle is going to tilt down, and there's a connection there we have to undo. We're going to take the wheel off. We're going to pull the CV axle out. We're going to disconnect the lower control arm. We're going to do all that to gain access to this side cover here. So that's our next step. Let me show you what's going on here. Alright, so far we've removed the steering tie rod end, we've undid the pinch bolt here, and then we removed the cradle mounts from this side, one front, one back, and now the whole subframe drops down and we can slide this kind of plastic rubber boot out of the way. We can get to this bolt here and disconnect the steering column from the steering rack. That'll allow us to drop it down a little bit further. We don't have to go a lot further. We just need enough room to get this cover off. And then of course we're gonna pop this CV axle out, and we'll just kind of swing this entire assembly kind of out of the way, and we should be able to access pretty much everything through this opening over here. Anyway, that's the goal. right, we managed to finagle the cover out of there, and we removed the oil pump and the valve body. Little check balls went bouncing everywhere. I retrieved all those, and we got to make sure we don't lose them because a lot of these little passages require them. When you look at the thing, it looks kind of scary and complex with all the little maze-like passages. Really, when you look at an automatic transmission, it's a lot like an electrical circuit. So instead of wires transmitting electricity, you have passages transmitting hydraulic fluid pressure. So before I take the next step and pull this cover off here and go into the actual gears and clutches and so forth, I want to try to narrow down what the cause of my problem is. And the book is very, very helpful in that respect. Let me show you what I mean. So for every possible operating mode, it shows you which passages do what, which clutches are applied, which servos are applied. A servo is what makes a band grab a drum. So servos, clutches, things of that nature. So this is helpful, but there's also even a list showing you what kind of things would cause certain symptoms. So here it says, no driving and drive. Well, we get a little bit of drive. It slips a lot. So that's maybe not the most accurate. Slips in drive might be a little bit more accurate description. And kind of the main possible culprits are going to be the 1-2 servo and piston. That's a band. And also the, where'd it go? Input clutch. So those are the two friction devices that could cause it. But another thing that could cause it would be the, where'd it go? I think I said on this side. Oh, my input sprag over here. An input sprag. A sprag is like a one-way roller clutch. So if that fails, things will turn the opposite way that they're supposed to. So those are the kind of things we want to look at. How do I figure out which of those it's more likely to be? Well, we can pressure check our clutches. We can pressure our clutch and our band. We can pressure test that servo, and we can pressure test that input clutch. So looking at the passages, these are the passages in the valve body. These are the passages in the transmission case. We can look up and find where that 1-2 servo is. For example, there's my number 26 is my 1-2 servo. So if I find passage 26 and apply a little bit of air pressure to it, I should be able to hear that, that servo move and that band move. Now we'll pressure check those before we take that cover off. We'll just see if we can hear something taking place. If nothing happens and the air just bypasses, well, we know we found our culprit. Well, I've air checked the passages I thought were the correct ones, and I'm getting some resistance. The air is not bleeding right off. It gets a little bit of a bleed down, so it's kind of inconclusive. It seems like both the servo and the clutch are applying. So we're going to dig further. That didn't really help me much. So we're going to go ahead and take this case cover off. We'll take some gears out and we'll take a look at the things, see if we can get a visual on what the cause of the problem is. look, you can see the clutch is all stacked up in there. I'll apply some air to this. You should see them move. Two sets of clutches. One is the input clutch. I don't know what the other one is. I have to look it up. So you can hear it. You can see them moving. So they are applying. So that would be the bottom set. This one goes to the top set. I think that's second. And it works too. It's not my input clutch. And that band looked good, and that servo looked good. I'm kind of thinking it's the Sprague. I don't know if it's this one or the other one. So let's see if we can get that Sprague to come out of there. Now that I'm looking at those clutches, they look like they got hot down in there. That may be our problem after all. And that turns. That's not a problem. I mean, it's gripping pretty tight. So my thought is, yeah, these are all really dark. Although they did seem to apply okay. Take them again. Oh, air, please. There's my Sprague, the one-way clutch. Looks like it got a little hot. It's working in my hand, but that may not be enough to hold under the torque of a car engine. Remember, it moves slightly, but you give it any kind of throttle, it slips. Let's look at some of our other clutches. They're not looking burnt. You got to air check each and every one of these. But there's a Sprague right there as well, so I'm not sure which one is our problem child. Yeah, this one seems to be holding as well, so it's not. You can see I can turn it that way, but I can't turn it the other way. There's not much friction material on them. I'm suspecting this is our issue right here. They're like, there's almost no friction material on them. I don't know if you can see how thin that is. I think they're just worn out. I don't think we were just from 160,000 miles of use. Well, so what I'll probably do at this point is go online, look these up, and see how they look when they're fresh and new. And I think this is going to be our whole problem right here. And if indeed this is our problem, as I suspect that it is, because everything else looks pretty darn good, I'll go ahead and order those clutches and a gasket set, a couple of motor mounts, and we'll put her back together. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. We dug into it. We think we've identified the problem. I'm going to get some stuff ordered. We'll put this back together. We think we'll put this enormous nightmare back together. And hopefully it'll work. But don't bet on it. One of the things I want to do, though, is I got to get all this stuff covered up. Because when you're talking about automatic transmissions, you've got to make sure they stay absolutely spotless inside. One tiny grain of sand is all it takes to stick one of the valves in the valve body or keep a check ball from seating or something like that, and then you're going to have all kinds of problems. So all this stuff's going to get covered up and put aside until I can get the parts coming for it, which means my rack will be tied up even more time, and I won't be able to work on anything on the rack. But, you know, that's just the way it goes. And if all else fails, well, I can always put a used tranny in it. But it's worth a try trying to fix it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like button as well as the subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next episode when hopefully we'll put all this giant mess back together. Now, let me see if I can get out of here without slipping and falling and breaking my neck. Yeah, there is oil everywhere. Thanks for watching. Covered up so dust and dirt doesn't get inside. What is this? What in the world? Part of a thrust washer? This is only part of it. Uh-oh. I think we got more problems than just a burnt clutch.